So there would be simultaneously where you know what's going to happen. It's a Grand Theft Auto, you know it's going to be a game about being a criminal, but the way it's going to be a game is going to change quite a lot. So I think the way the IP kept evolving meant people being really excited to play it. And we were good at marketing them as well. We really tried to market them in a way that felt like an update of classic film marketing, where you were really felt like you're already in the product just because you'd seen the trailers and stuff.
You mentioned that you haven't written for Grand Theft Auto 6. What's it feel like Grand Theft Auto 6 returning to Vice City? This is over 20 years later, but the original GTA Vice City game was set in the 80s.
This is such a good question. Ah, dude, Lex Freedman is amazing. He's such a good interviewer.
So maybe inspired by Scarface a little bit?
Oh,
Scarface, sure. Miami Vice.
Miami Vice.
And our 80s childhoods. You know, what I realized quite a while ago, unfortunately, was that we made that game and it was set, I think, in 86. And we made it in 2002, so it's 16 years after. And now it's way past 16 years since Vice City came out. So it was, the 80s were not that long ago when we made it.
Yeah.
You know, I think Miami is one of the most unique cities in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're thinking about it, satirizing American culture.
Yeah.
It has this duality of a glossy surface and a dark underworld. It has the influencers, it has the crypto bros, the yachts, bikinis, plastic surgery, sports cars, drugs, cartel cash, luxury, super rich people, and the desperately poor, just the whole of it. Would it be like the perfect city to explore the full cast of characters that are possible, that human nature can generate?
I think it's one of them. You know, there's a reason why GTA kept coming back to Miami, New York, Los Angeles. I think they're all very good for exactly what you laid out. You know, you could say move it to any of those and it would work.
I think if you move it to any city that's like a melting pot. So if you did it in like Vancouver or Toronto, or there's a lot of places, New York is a good example because New York is such a huge melting pot. That is one of the great examples of where all these different cultures come together. So you see all different walks of life. And you can do satire on all those. That's why what they're talking about, right? You got to pick that special city where you can see all the different walks of life. And Florida is perfect for that.
You know,
so yeah, there's a melting pot aspect to New York also, right?
Yeah, melting pot aspect to LA. You know, there's glitz, glamour, underbelly, immigrants.
Yep.
You know, enormous wealth in all of them. I think those are what I think are really fun for any, not even just for GTA, but for anything where you want a kind of slice of life, almost like a sort of psychotic version of a Dickens book. You know, this big slice of life. He did it with London. You know, this psychotic version of these, you know, big, all kinds of characters in a melting pot. Any of these global cities work well for that.
Do you know if that was ever consideration to go elsewhere to like a London?
We made a little thing in London 26 years ago, GTA London, for the top down for the PS1. That was pretty cute and fun. As the first mission pack ever for PlayStation 1. I think for a full GTA game, we always decided it was, there was so much Americana inherent in the IP, it would be really hard to make it work in London or anywhere else. You know, you needed guns, you needed these larger than life characters. It just felt like the game was so much about America, you know, possibly from an outsider's perspective, but you know, that was so much about what the thing was that it wouldn't really have worked in the same way elsewhere.
So you've created, I don't know how many, over 10 Grand Theft Auto games.
I think so.
Wow.
I have to ask, is it a little bit bittersweet to say goodbye to the Grand Theft Auto world and having to watch Grand Theft Auto 6 released? Or is it more excitement? What's the feeling?
Good question.
I think it's how would I describe it? Of course, it's all of the above. You know, it's exactly as you know, pleased to be doing other stuff, excited for what we're working on now, super excited. Of course, letting go of something I worked on it one way or another for like 20 odd years, you know, and wrote on the last 10 or 11 that came out, wrote all of them, or, you know, lead writer on all of them, whatever it was. So of course, letting go of that is, you know, is a big change and a lot and sad in a way, because it was, each of the games was a kind of standalone story. it's not quite the same as I think probably it would be in some ways sadder if someone continued on Red Dead because it was a cohesive 2-game arc. That might be more sad to hear someone working on that. But again, that will probably happen too. I don't own the IP. That was the sort of part of the deal. It's a privilege to work on stuff, but you don't necessarily own it.
When you're done with the game, does it always feel like a goodbye? Like when you're done with Red Dead 2, is like you're saying goodbye to Arthur? Like the characters you created, you're walking away.
You kind of are. It's
Yeah.
goodbye to Arthur in the end of the game,
Yeah.
even before the end of the game. Yeah, I think you've got, I've been with them for 7-8 years and you have to kind of let it go or you can't go on to the next one.
Yeah.
So there's always this thing of okay, that's done. And sometimes people would ask me questions about older games. And certainly when I was in the middle of making new ones in this, I couldn't really necessarily even remember. I've got a pretty good memory normally because you kind of have to let it go.
Yep.
So it's you're so immersed in it and thinking about it. And certainly in that last period, the last few months, you're really, really immersed in every little nuance and every little detail all of the time. And then you're just not thinking about it in the same way.
Yeah, especially when you move on to like the next game, all that stuff just becomes completely in the past. You just kind of poof, you move on. You're now at the next mountain, and you're at the bottom of the mountain, ready to climb back up to the top again, right? And it's very interesting. He says it like that.
Yeah, it's funny from the player perspective. It feels like an old friend that I miss, whether it's John or
Yeah.
Arthur or Nico.
Mm.
It's a real goodbye. There's a real sadness to finishing a video game.
It really is, especially with Last of Us. The Last of Us, I was really sad to finish that video game. Oh my God. And especially, what's another one? Vice City was one I was sad to finish. Cyberpunk, I didn't quite want to finish either. There's a lot of games that pull on your heartstrings. Red Dead as well. I did not want to go through I won't have any spoilers, but I didn't want to finish that as well. And I haven't quite finished it on stream, but you get the point.
I hope so.
Legitimately a sad experience, not just because the story is sad or
Because you've been with them so long.
yeah,
You get attached to these characters. You get physically attached, not physically, you get emotionally attached to these characters. You really, really sometimes feel like the character himself. Sometimes these characters, you kind of embody them yourself because you play as Arthur for so long or whatever, you know?
and it's a real goodbye to close it. There's that feeling when you're sort of close the video game.
Yeah.
And it's like saying goodbye to a friend. And
That's when you finish a book you love. It's the same feeling.
Same feeling.
And I think that was something that we really, in the early days of Rockstar, really aspired to have that, where people would have that. It wasn't just the mania of clearing a level, but the feeling of saying goodbye to characters. I think that was something we really wanted to achieve in games that we didn't know was even possible. So to hear people say that is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, the end of On the Road by Kerouac, Forlorn Rags have grown old. I just remember closing that and thinking, what the fuck am I doing in this big world? It's a melancholic feeling, but there's nothing like that feeling. And you've achieved it. It's so rare in video games to be able to achieve that with Red Dead. And for me, it was Grand Theft Auto 4 with Nico. I have to ask about, in the 2018 interview, you talked about satirizing American culture, which I think Grand Theft Auto was trying to do. And you've made, I think, a really powerful observation that on the political front, people are getting more divided. It's getting more absurd and ridiculous and extreme. So it's becoming harder and harder to satirize because of how rapidly it's becoming ridiculous. You're talking about, you don't even know from Grand Theft Auto 6 if it's possible to satirize, because by the time you release the thing, it's already going to be outdated in terms of the satire will become reality, essentially.
That's interesting.
It'd be nice to get your updated view on that. And second of all, it seems like you've answered your very own comment with American Caper, which to satirize, because by the time you release the thing, it's already going to be outdated in terms of the satire will become reality, essentially. First of all, it'd be nice to get your updated view on that. And second of all, it seems like you've answered your very own comment with American Caper, which seems to satirize American culture just fine in how much over the top it goes. Anyway, that's lots of questions in there.
One of the things we've enjoyed about doing a comic book is that it still has lead times, but the lead times are not 4 or 5 years. The lead times are, a year, and we can make little updates much newer. And we're just wrapping issue 10 of a 12 issue arc for that. So it's not quite as difficult. You still can get the tone of it. But yeah, I think it's an issue anyone trying to talk about this current era, which began in 2015, 2016, is going to have of how do you characterize it when things move so quickly and so fast.
Yeah.
So American Caper is, first of all, epic comic book. I love it. The art.
Yeah, the art's beautiful. David Lapham is the artist. He did an amazing job. He is a wonderful, wonderful storyteller.
What made you want to set it in Wyoming?
Hadn't seen a modern story there that I knew about. I started to spend a bit more time in the Rockies and in the West, and I was like, I'd spent a lot of time in like the countryside in upstate New York, and thought I'd never really captured it quite right. And just the idea of these places as they change, it was a way of doing a crime story that didn't feel the same as a GTA. It was not somewhere you would necessarily set a GTA, but it felt like it was really interesting and underexplored.
And there is over the top stuff. There's
yeah, it's definitely slightly over the top.
So let me take notes on this. There's a spoiler alert, I guess, from the first issue, I believe. There's a devout suburban Mormon who commits, I think, serial murder with a shovel as a form of religious atonement.
He's not necessarily, the sharpest tool in the box, and his rather cynical boss is using his religion and some mistakes he's made to blackmail him into murdering business associates.
And of course, there's this Shakespearean sort of two neighbors situation, and each of them having a duality of who they are in terms of good and evil. So there's a Wall Street transplant who wants to be a cowboy.
Yes.
Who loves to manually harvest bull semen.
Oh my God.
Accurate? I mean,
yes.
This is the notes I've been taking.
He is a somewhat confused, longevity obsessed, rich dude who's run away to Wyoming and is living out an assortment of fantasies.
And bull semen is a big component of longevity.
Yes, he's very into all the life hacking, roiding, HGH, and making money.
And
he's lost his mind.
How wild, dude. Lost his mind.
Of course, on the theme of satire, there is a woman who sleeps in tactical gear and is consumed by online conspiracies, like especially pedophiles in DC.
Yes, based on someone I know.
Oh, that's wild.
Who got completely red-pilled.
Wow.
And I was fascinated by the fact that this was happening to people.
Wow.
Yeah, so, satire of American culture.
Yeah.
Quick pause. Bathroom break?
Sure.
I think GTA 5 had the biggest launch in video game history, and GTA 6 has the potential to topping that. First of all, do you think it will? And more broadly, what was your definition of success for a video game?
I would assume it will, because it's so anticipated, and anticipation is the best driver of early sales. As we saw with GTA 4 versus Red Dead Redemption 1, GTA 4 far more anticipated, sold much better early on. So I would assume it will sell really well. That was never my definition of success, but you certainly wanted to make money. You're spending someone's money. So the number one success is, are you making that money back plus $1? At some level, that has to be the single most important thing. So you get to do it again. You've got teams of people need to pay the rent. You have to keep the lights on in the business. So you have to make a small profit. If you think in that way, that keeps you being creative. I think that was like trying to forget about that. It's not really an option. But we almost always did that. We didn't quite always do that, but we almost always did that. I think the definition of success for me was, had we tried to do new things and done them, or achieved some of our goals. Mm-hmm. That was the thing that I'm at. And were people responding to these worlds and these characters in a way that I wanted them to?
Is it crazy to you that video games are able to make billions of dollars when, if you look at like the 80s and 90s, nobody took video games seriously, and even in the aughts, and now they're basically, it's very possible if we look at 10, 20 years from now, that video games surpass film as a
What do you mean? They already have. Video games have surpassed film Big time. A long time ago when GTA 5 came out. GTA 5 is the fastest growing entertainment product of all time. The selling product of all time. It smashed records of movies and all that.
To consume stories.
I think they've possibly already done that
Yeah.
in some ways. And certainly as a business proposition, they've already done that. But I think that's not, as a way of telling stories, I think they're better at telling certain kinds of stories, and films are better at other kinds of stories.
Yeah.
I think if you want a long discursive adventure, a video game is better. If you want a short, tight experience, a film is better. We always felt games were the coming medium. And so spent 20 years saying games are the future, and being sneered at, them being laughed at, having people nod their heads, and then it kind of happening. So I would, at the same time, much as you might say something, you don't necessarily believe it's going to be true, but it has become true. And I think still that games are only going to get better, more interesting,
Bigger,
more creatively, diverse.
Adobe Acrobat Studio is all new. What can PDF spaces with AI do? Do a sales invoice good enough to eat? Adobe Express brings the heat. Now we're talking. It's time to share. Every page, every doc, everything.
You said that Red Dead Redemption 2, in your opinion, is the best thing you've ever done. I think there's a strong case to be made that it's the greatest game of all time. What are the elements that make that game truly great, do you think?
I think you had an incredibly strong team working together that was very experienced, that had basically been in place since somewhere between 2001 and 2006.
It's very true.
A long, experienced team. I think we got to spend a smaller group of us working on it from day one, coming up with some weird, wacky ideas that we got to embed in the game, and then we kind of had to follow through with, that I think was helpful. Like, we got to be very creative before it had a full team on it. I think that the cowboy setting is great because it gives a sort of mythic seriousness that sometimes doing stuff in a contemporary setting doesn't allow.
Yeah.
I think the closest we got to that kind of seriousness was GTA 4, but it just can't. Once you're setting things in the modern world, they're too frenetic. You can't get some of that slightly, operatic feel that I love, that some people think is maybe a little over the top. But I love this kind of, people searching for meaning within amongst the violence. I think that the West and all of the themes around the West really lend itself to that. So I think that, and then the gunplay was fantastic, and the horses were incredible. So I think you had this combination of kind of technical know-how, a very, very strong team, and really strong material.
Where did you have to go to in your mind, maybe philosophically, maybe spiritually, to be able to create the RDR world? So of course it was based on Red Dead Revolver, but that's a fundamentally different. I mean, that leap into the great mythic story that was Red Dead Redemption 1, and then even more so Red Dead Redemption 2. That was unlike anything you or maybe anyone has ever created in video games.
Well, thank you.
So, like, what drugs were involved?
No drugs. Okay. No, stop the drugs long before.
Okay.
That's why I did all that work.
Yeah.
Had nothing else to do. Open world video games were very good for my mental health in that way. Kept me busy. Red Dead, I'll give you my version. The games are made by big teams.
Yeah.
So I will give you my human interest version of the story from my perspective only. We made Red Dead Revolver, finished Red Dead Revolver, that being a Capcom game, and they didn't want to finish it, so we finished it, and they released it in Japan, and we released it in the US in, I think, 2004, and decided we would start work on an open world cowboy game for PS3. Didn't think too much more about it, and that was, we had a bunch of other stuff to work on. And slowly 2005, 2006, the game started to come to life, began to meet with the lead designer, Christian Cantamessa, and thrash out a few ideas and story ideas for the game, and begin to think about some stuff, and start thinking about, well, what works for an open world game, what works for a cowboy game. And again, was being lazy or procrastinating.
Can we just, on a small tangent, when you mention you take notes when you're being lazy, what do those notes look like? Are they like
They look
doodles?
like either a yellow pad or a BlackBerry in those days or an iPhone in these days, I'll write the subject matter and then just email myself a note. Here's a good idea. Here's a good idea. And those, or it might be scribbling on a pad. And then I'll assemble, if they're done digitally, then I'll assemble them into one long word file. And then I'll look at them and go, here's an idea, and see if it comes to anything. See if I can aggregate them together and then read through them. If there's anything coherent there. Some like a character like this, a character like that. This would be a funny line. This is a line for the main character. Actually make the main character work like this, or what about this relationship? As you start to just play around with, what about if we start in that place, go to that place, just start to play around with all of the different bits and pieces. And we begun to flesh out some flow for the start of the game, and this idea you'd start in dusty American West, which meant we didn't have to make too many trees, and then go to Mexico and then come back. And we had a sort of loose flow, and I was really scared of writing any actual dialogue.
Wow.
And I didn't have a clue how to go about it. And it'll come. And then and I could postpone it for ages because we were doing GTA 4, and I kept worrying about it. And then my work was wrapped on GTA 4, but the game wasn't out yet. And we've done a bunch of the marketing stuff, and I had a little window when I wasn't doing much else. And I took a week with my then girlfriend, now wife, who was heavily pregnant with our first child. And we went up to a house upstate and sat there in the, she sat there either cooking for me or watching TV or reading. And I went and sat in the room all day, every day, and just sat there and stared at the computer and tried to think about, how can I do this that it doesn't sound ridiculous? How can you write in a cowboy idiom that feels both slightly contemporary, but also gives the game this sort of life and this weight that I want it to have, and think we can get away with? And after about 3 days, it just started to come. And then suddenly I wrote about 9-10 scenes in the next couple of days. And after that, I knew I had it. And it was, I don't know if that was why there was so much about a character caring about his family, because I was just beginning the process of having a family. I don't know to what extent that bled in there, but I think it bled in there to some extent.
So that was part of the creating the 360-degree characters.
I think so.
Here's this man that is capable, is involved in a lot of violence, but also cares about his family.
He's grown up and is trying to step away from that and be a man, be a grown up. And can he get away from it? And then when he can't get away from it, what's he willing to do to save his family? And that was, I felt, starting to get some idea, feeling just, I mean, she hadn't given birth yet, but I was beginning to grapple with the ideas of, I'm going to become a parent. So I hope some of that, and obviously then I probably didn't write any more for 6 months. So later on I had a child, but certainly for that first bit, I think some of that began to bleed in there.
You got the feeling that you can actually do it. It's true. It's, it could have very easily been ridiculous and not believable, the dialogue between cowboys. And there's probably so much work went into making it feel real and believable and like that, like a Shakespearean type of drama, but not the cheesy kind.
Well, just wanted it to feel, when they spoke, I mean, I love dialogue. I'm always, I love the sound of words, but just wanted to feel like when they sounded, it didn't sound cheesy. It didn't sound ridiculous. You wanted to hear them speak more. It didn't make you cringe awfully when they spoke. That was at some level, that was all the goal was. And then they felt like this guy was going to go on this life and death odyssey, and you cared about him. You had to care about his wife and child that he left behind, even though you didn't know them.
When did you know how you're going to end Red Dead Redemption 1?
I remember I did a meeting with Christian, the designer. I can't remember what year, probably some point late 2008, early 2009. And we were discussing the last bit and said, I think he's got to die. And he leapt on that idea and went, that's, yes, no. I went, no, it can't work. Games can't work like that. They can't work if he's dead. And then I began to think through, well, if we just technically, it doesn't work because you have to be able to finish all the stuff up. And then began to think through, actually, I think we can make it work if we do it this way. And so he then really pushed for that idea. And it seemed to, I was like, I was still torn. I thought it was clever narratively, but I was torn if it was going to work technically as a piece of game design, but I think it did.
And you know what? If you kill off the character, then you can't have a number two, or you know what I mean? That's what they think. And so it's sometimes hard to make a decision like that and kill off a character. I mean, it's just a huge pivotal moment, and a lot of people are so attached to the character that's why it can be actually so cool in a game to do that, because it's kind of risky, but also it pays off in the story as being something really kind of climactic and dramatic.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, of course. How do we tell the story of that? Well, so he goes through a lot. John does all the dirty work of hunting down his old gang, and he finally is able to go home and be with his family, be on the ranch, and then the government betrays him and sends troops to kill him, and there is dialogue. I
Yeah,
mean, that
spoiler.
just I think the two times I shed a tear in video game history for me
Hmm.
is that dialogue. I think John talking to his wife, if I vaguely remember, I think he said, "I love you," but he said very little. He didn't, he made it seem like he's going to see her and his son shortly. That dialogue was masterfully done, like a definition of like less is more. It was just so crisp. That, and of course the other one is again from memory, Arthur riding
Yeah.
his horse and the music is playing. It's very hard not to shed a tear during that. Anyway, the dialogue of John talking to his wife at the end when he's in a barn and is about to walk out to face certain death. Do you remember writing that?
Oh yeah, yeah. But it does again. The actor was so good, and we've already seen a bunch of his work by then.
Yeah.
He was so good at reading those lines that
Mhm.
I knew he could give us that you could feel with that point. Like,
Mhm.
I think those lines are best when they're really short and punchy. And so
Got it.
I knew he'd be able to make that line sound good.
So you were imagining his voice.
Yeah,
You
and
understood.
I think all of those actors on Red Dead Redemption 1 were so strong that they really brought that game to life. If them and Rod the director hadn't done such a good job, it would have sounded cheesy as hell.
Yeah, you've said that the ending of of RDR1 is one of the best things you've been a part of creating. Why? Why is that ending so powerful to you? What does it represent?
I think because for the story to work, I mean, just from a technical challenge, for the story to work, he had to die. But for a game to work, it felt like a challenge to make him die. It was probably the fourth, fifth, or sixth open world game I'd worked on, and I'd spent all these years before that working out how these stories worked, how to make them work technically, how to make them feel right, how they interacted with the open form gameplay as best I could. And suddenly we're going to break one of our golden rules, which was at the end of the game, you're freeing the character to go and wrap up all the side stories to play forever. You're not going to be able to do that in this game because the guy's going to be dead, and we're going to have you play as a different character. And the narrative is going to be, if we've done a good job, compelling enough where you're not going to care about that. And or you're going to be upset that he's dead, but you're going to actually have this emotional moment. So I think it was a big risk from a technical perspective to do that.
Yeah.
And then it worked. So I think that was something that was full of fear, and it worked. It worked out okay. I mean, I think people were really upset and angry at us for doing it because they didn't think it was going to happen. But I think they also had that kind of experience you're describing, which is that kind of creative moment where, transcendent moment with characters in a piece of fiction, which is what we were always aspiring to giving people.
I mean, it's incredible because I don't remember a single video game that has done that before.
Well, I would like to have at the end of GTA 4 kill Nico, but you couldn't do it. The game doesn't work that way. So it was this thing where we hadn't done it, thought about doing it, hadn't done it, and then going, well, let's do it. Let's take the risk and do it. Or we can't do it. Let's try it, and it worked.
I wonder if that's why they did it on GTA 5 as well at the end there, where you have to decide and stuff with Franklin. I wonder if there's something to be said about that. There's a lot of people that enter into a story and they want to kill the main character, or they want to do that. And I think that's mainly because it's so dramatic. It can has such a dramatic effect on the viewer. So maybe that's why they do it. But to me, you don't always have to kill the character. And if you kill the character, then it's hard to kind of do other things with the character. He's dead, right?
Yeah, what about the decision with the son? You know, John give so much effort to make sure that Jack doesn't end up in a life of violence. And then I mean, it's very Godfather-like. He's dragged back into it through revenge.
That was also, the game still had to work as a game. Whether that was the right ending, 100% the best ending from a pure storytelling perspective, I don't know. But I know that we had to make the game work.
Interesting.
So it was, I think it kind of worked in that way where Jack can't escape. But I always also wanted a version of it where Jack did escape, but that wasn't, both were interesting to me.
Can you just dig in a little deeper? Like, what do you mean about for the game to work? It's such a direct, it's like a Kubrick talking about, for this movie to work, it has to have, because from my perspective, I just think about the story. What's the technical aspect for the game to work?
The mechanical experience is, you have an avatar you control, and the games don't really end, and you have to be able to wander around the world and do stuff. So at the end of the game, you had to be able to wander around with your fairly limited set of features, which is you can run up to someone and punch them, or run up to someone and shoot them, or run up to someone and rob them, or run up to someone and talk to them, and that's or run up and jump on a horse, or do all this other stuff, in order for the game still to be fun and people to get this full 360-degree experience with it. They had to, if they wanted 100% the game as opposed to just finishing the story, you have to have an avatar to do that stuff with. So that was the sort of challenge.
I see what he's saying.
Of Jack's character / wrapping up the story as Jack.
Although there's real power for the avatar to end.
Yeah.
The finiteness.
Yeah. Both the Red Deads, you obviously change avatar, which we got, and then did it again. I think there's something interesting about that moment when you change from one character to another, because they are you and they're not you, and then just suddenly you're someone else.
I mean, I was really shaken by that experience, but it's a beautiful experience. It's like an unforgettable experience. And what else can video games possibly reach for? That's to create that experience. That's what great films do. That's what great books do.
It's that and the world building in games. I think the experience of being in this fake place and then taking on these narrative adventures, when that combines, you've got the amazing experience.
So who do you think is the best character you've ever created in RDR? So to me, I think definitively Arthur from Red Dead Redemption 2 is the best character ever created in video games.
Wow.
Ever. I think there's not even I mean, John would be the same, which is hilarious to say, but like those are John would be a close second, but Arthur is definitively, and you've talked about in that interview, you said that a lot of video games work on the same premise, that you start as a weak person and end up as a strong superhero. But what if you start as a tough guy, someone who already is very strong, someone that is emotionally confident of his place in the world? Arthur's journey is not about becoming a superhero, because he's almost one at the start, but it's about an intellectual roller coaster when his worldview gets taken apart. So it's very different than the normal journey of a character.
Yeah, in a game. I wanted to reverse it.
Yeah.
So there were a couple other themes that matched that. So they're guys from the Wild West, but they're being pushed ever further east.
Yeah.
So it was almost like an anti-Western, an Eastern. You're traveling east. You're traveling into civilization. And I don't think I would have been grappling with those ideas earlier in my career. Because there was, this idea of getting a different kind of strength and a different kind of weakness was interesting.
What about the component of mortality? Of a character facing his own mortality over a prolonged period, sort of just realize the prospect of like real sort of fear of death, realization of death.
Yeah, I thought that was really
part of the story.
Really a fun thing to play with.
Yeah.
John dies in Red Dead 1 and wanted to top that with Red Dead 2, or do that in a different way. And so the idea that John's death is fairly sudden. And so if he's got this long drawn out death, and then I'd always been obsessed by TB as diseases go, it's a great literary device, you know, because it is this long, drawn out, slow death, but in which you are also getting weaker. And my grandfather actually had TB before they invented antibiotics and was sent to a sanatorium just after he'd had his child, my father, and survived, but only 3 of them out of like 35 survived. So I was always captivated and by TB as an illness. It felt like it was an interesting thing to play around with as an idea, this guy getting weaker who felt like he was immortal and essentially was immortal. He was the protagonist in a video game. He could not die. And suddenly he is becoming mortal. And you know, but that helps him see stuff. I thought that was a different way of doing a lead character in a game.
Yeah. Do you think it's the greatest character you've ever created?
I think he's the best lead character. You know, the lead characters are different from the side characters.
Very good point.
And I think he's the most rounded and works the best. I kind of him and Nico are the 2 I like. You know, they were the 2 most ambitious. So
Yeah,
for
I'm
me,
with
it's always sort of a toss up. You know, but then I loved all the stuff like the art team did such an amazing job. It was there with the journal and that kind of like the way that all the features worked into Arthur's character. I thought that was he was really rounded. He worked in lots of different ways really well. I loved like his flawed relationship with his old girlfriend, things like that. All the side, you know, the bits that kind of turned up around him.
I like those bits a lot as well, because that really rounds out Arthur as a character. Because Arthur is like this evil, not evil, but he's like, you know, a killer, okay? A killer for Dutch and a bad guy, basically. But when you get to see his genuine, real side, and that he has love and that he cares about this woman and he cares about all these different things and about eventually having a life together, it really brings humanity to him and makes you feel for him as a character, which is so good for the story.
So you also like the side characters. You like the flavor, of the full cast. What are some of the favorites you've created? I'm sure the one you're currently working on, Nigel Dave. If you called him a side character.
Well, he's not a protagonist. He's like he's a god, not a character.
Sure.
So he's not him. I'm enjoying. I love Dutch.
Dutch,
You know, it was partly because we wrote a few lines for him for the first game, and the actor did such an amazing job that when he spoke, it just came to me all of their backstory, which I'd been playing around with by that point anyway, a little bit in my head, but I knew it was this bigger gang stuff, and then I sort of saw exactly who he was, and so that felt like he felt like a living character to me.
And we should say that Dutch is kind of like maybe a little bit of a godlike figure.
Yeah.
In both of the Red Dead Redemption games, and he's the leader of the gang. And there's a father-son relationship with Dutch, with Arthur, with John. I mean, there's a family feeling to the gang that you explore all of those dynamics, and then the feeling of betrayal, and Arthur facing tuberculosis. You're going against the family, going against the father because he is transforming his sense of the world, of morality, of all those kinds of things. So all the kind of very Shakespearean drama is right there, and Dutch is a prominent
at the head
godlike figure through all of that. Also flawed himself. Also a man of good and evil in that framework that they're operating under.
He's just drowning in his ego at the end.
Yeah.
You know, his ego gets the better of him. I think he's but there was something flawed but beautiful in his idealism when he was younger. And that's mostly off camera. And then just, you know, always been, as an individual, I've always been very susceptible to charming people, and he's charming. And so I can see how people get captivated by charming people. And the idea here was a very charming person, and the roads run out for him.
I personally am afraid of how much I love human beings and how susceptible I am to charm and charisma.
Yeah.
Because it can cloud your judgment about human nature.
Completely. And that's what's happened with him.
Yep.
And it ended up clouding his judgment about himself.
Yep.
He kind of fell for his own rubbish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And dude, this is really a cool interview because he's touching on stuff that, like, you don't kind of see all the way. Like, you see sort of the picture in Red Dead 2 of what he's talking about, but you don't see the whole picture. And like, I don't know, when he talks, it clarifies all this stuff. It's so awesome. I'm really loving this interview. I'm so glad we checked this out.
Arthur was
Yeah.
completely, platonically in love with him. He was worshipping him. He'd given up his power to him.
Yeah.
And then I think for Arthur, the journey is retaking that power in the moment of dying. That's what that's what I thought that was really interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, it's truly tragic for Arthur to be losing his identity, lifelong identity, and the sense of belonging, and losing his life at the same time.
Yeah.
In facing the mortality,
It's like tragic.
he is realizing that he's not. All of it has been a lie.
But he gets to do
Yeah.
some, well, it depends on what the choices you make,
Yeah.
but he gets to do some good.
Yes,
And so he gets his moment of redemption.
just a little bit. But realizing
Yep.
your whole life, you've been living not a good life.
Yes.
You've been not a good man.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we're all afraid of?
I guess it's never too.
Wow, that was good. Did you hear Dan Hauser? He said, "Isn't that what we're all afraid of?" That's so true. I think we all are afraid of that, of dying, and when we die, we leave a bad impression on people that we were a bad person. We don't want to be a bad person. We want to leave and look back at ourselves as being a good person. That was really powerful for some reason, man.
Late to change your
not.
ways. So the biggest, most important question, primary, central to the reason we're talking today, the number one question from the internet. It is so ridiculous, but I must ask.
What is it?
Have you seen Gavin? Who is
Oh, Gavin.
So for more context, there's a guy named Nigel in Red Dead Redemption 2
Yeah.
who's frantically searching for a mystery man named Gavin throughout the game. This has become one of the biggest mysteries amongst the interwebs,
Where's
the
Gavin?
RDR fan base.
Where's Gavin?
So the theories include, theory one is it's a split personality disorder. Nigel himself is Gavin. So the evidence is the letter for this theory that has some evidence that maybe due to trauma, the split personality disorder was created. Gavin was created inside Nigel's mind. Theory 2 is Gavin is dead and Nigel's simply in denial. Theory 3 is that it's just a troll and Rockstar intentionally created an unsolvable mystery to drive players crazy. I also heard theory 4 is Gavin is the strange man. So there's this fascinating character, the strange man, this supernatural character that has a presence in RDR 1 and a little bit in RDR 2 also.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah. So which theory is closest to the truth?
Not 3 or 4.
Yeah, theory
Somewhere,
1.
in my mind, somewhere between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just loved the way he shouted Gavin. It just amused me. So
That's
at some
great.
level, it probably is trolling in that we didn't want it to be a totally clear mystery.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted it to have a little bit of adventure to it. But it was
open-ended.
meant to be, without ever fully being
Told you.
explained,
Yeah.
that Gavin's not there anymore.
Mm.
Gavin's either gone home, Gavin's left him,
Mhm.
Gavin's, and we were going to keep exploring that idea.
And
Gavin's going to reappear in some way or other.
Did you have any idea how much
So funny.
imagination, excitement, and curiosity that little interaction would inspire in people?
Yes and no. I mean, no, you never know what people are going to find amusing
Yeah.
in these big games. And
Yeah.
a lot of it comes down to acting as well. The guy was just funny when he said Gavin.
Yeah.
It was just funny.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but there was a ped in Red Dead Redemption 1 that everyone was obsessed by. And I really wasn't expecting that. So we try and put a few characters in. I mean, Gavin was supposed to be amusing. I thought he was amusing. But you never know what people are going to get obsessed by. There are other characters I think are funny and the people don't even notice them,
Yeah.
you know, or they see them in a completely different way.
Did you have a part in writing the letter?
Yeah, I can't remember if I wrote it or either I wrote it or Mike wrote it or we both wrote it. I really can't remember, to be honest with you. But yeah, I certainly would have edited it. And Mike might have written it or I might have written it. I really can't remember.
It's so fascinating because that little piece of writing, and of course you have thousands of pages,
Yeah.
that little piece of writing gets like analyzed.
Oh, but we certainly talked about it in depth. And if Mike was here, I'd ask it. He might remember. I can't, we do so much of those things.
Cool to see an interview
And
with
I
him.
loved the use of letters in Red Dead to tell all these weird backstories.
Yeah, me too.
Some became very clear and some were still a little kind of opaque. But the general vibe was there was no Gavin. Either there was no Gavin or he'd long since left. So it's kind of a split personality, and then we were going to over subsequent games that provide more information.
That's what I was just gonna say. I wonder if they're gonna like reveal more about Gavin, or we'll find Gavin in in Red Dead 3.
So in some sense, you yourself don't quite know. You kind of have an idea. So he could like which way do you lean more, theory 1 or 2? Is he dead and the guy and Nigel's in denial, or is there real communication going inside his head?
No, Gavin existed. So it wasn't that he was a split personality, and the
Oh,
the
okay.
only thing
So
we
Gavin
hadn't
did
really
exist.
decided
Okay.
was in a future game, what
Oh.
are we going to reveal?
Oh, okay.
that
Well,
Gavin
he
was
just
dead, or was
okay.
Gavin going to turn up having long since abandoned
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
maniac?
Okay.
That was what we're still playing around with.
Oh,
And
okay.
the idea was that he was never going to meet Gavin in this game.
Oh, okay.
It's just fascinating because you have to think about all of that. You have to write all of that. You have to have those discussions. You have to have those debates.
And it has to feel fresh. That was
Yeah.
like what we've done before, constantly looking as you do, I think I did, somewhere between 15 and 20 of these games, got to do stuff that's new. It can't repeat itself too much.
I mean, we also
hard to
live in
do
the
that.
age of the internet. Just like you realize there's like millions of people worrying about where and who Gavin is.
Thank God.
It's fascinating.
That is kind of wild when you think of it that way. That there's literally millions of people wondering where Gavin is. That is hilarious. Oh man, see what Rockstar has done. Oh man.
That they're having is they think about people reading like James Joyce or something, and thinking about like breaking apart Ulysses and thinking about like arguing about different interpretations of it. And to me, that in itself is
Kinda
also
cool.
beautiful.
Yeah, we want the side mysteries to be solvable up to a point, but you still want these discussions.
Yeah,
And you want,
the
but
mystery.
as long as it feels tonally appropriate for this whole big sort of Shaggy Dog story experience you're making. Which Gavin was just about, and he was so weird, and it just was intrinsically there was just something funny about an English person screaming Gavin. I don't know why.
Yeah, some of that humor. I mean, there's certainly in Red Dead Redemption there's humor, but there's a lot of it in Grand Theft Auto, and it's hard to put into words why that's funny, why it becomes meme, why it becomes viral, because it's just funny.
I know why I think it's funny, but what I'm not good at doing at least is going, this thing will become really popular online and this other thing won't.
Yeah.
You can create
You
this
never
bunch
know.
of 50 different side things that people might get captivated by, and you just do not know what they're going to respond to.
How do you know when something's funny? Is it you just feel it?
I know what I think is funny. It's
You just giggle at it yourself.
just because it's ridiculous as well. That was just
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
nothing funny
Oh, my
about a
ear.
dude shouting Gavin a lot.
Yeah.
He just said it in I just thought it might be funny, and
Yeah,
he just
the
said it in such a funny way,
Yeah.
and then it just became funny. Like we often have those side characters, and they're not that funny, and I think they're going to be hysterical. And then you put them in the game, and they're fine, but they're not amazing. That guy just brought that stuff to life.
Yeah. And there's a backstory too. I mean, Londoner and not.
Yeah, I think that was what Just there's something sometimes fun. An English person saying the name Gavin is quite funny.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
So about the strange man, aka the Man in Black, is there some element with
Who
Michael
is-
and the therapist in Grand Theft Auto 5? Like, who is the strange man?
Yeah.
Well, the strange man was someone we came up with quickly. We made Red Dead 1.
I remember this.
And we're making Red Dead 1, and we'd made this, we felt, quite compelling story and quite interesting open world, and we'd already made a bunch of Grand Theft Autos, obviously, but unfortunately we'd taken out the machine guns because it was a cowboy game, apart from the big fixed position ones, and we'd taken out the cars, and we'd taken out the city and large numbers of pedestrians. So we essentially had a game about a dude riding a horse around the desert, and it was quite boring. And so we then started filling it with content, and we filled it with these, and having to improvise, and we filled it with these things we call random events that would be these sort of mocap moments that you could interact with, and it was the designers did an amazing job with those. They were really fun, but there was not enough of them. And then we felt we needed more story because the story was perhaps a little short. So we kind of, quite late in development, started putting in almost like these RPG type content where you go and meet someone. And the way we thought of them was they were like short stories. So you go and meet someone, they'd set you a slow problem, like go and collect me 15 bunches of flowers. And when you came back, it would resolve your story.
Mhm.
And so the one would go and get them for my bride, and you come back and the bride's dead. You know, we tried to make them like these short stories with a stinging tail. And he came out, as I was trying to come up with ideas for those, as just this weird character. And then we built him a bit into the story where he would unlock as you worked your way through and be a commentary on what you were doing. So he was meant to be a kind of manifestation of your, you know, shadow, your karma, the devil, somewhere, you know, just saw the world. And then we built out his backstory over time. And decide, you know, and so in Red Dead 2, you could interact with him again or not really interact with him, but he was there and he was meant to be, you know, something I suppose any creative is scared of, an artist who's kind of sold his soul to the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And that slowly revealed itself.
There is a connection between the main character and is it like a Jungian shadow type of situation?
Well, it's sort of, because he knows what you're up to. The connection is, and what's never really made clear is, does he know this about everybody? Like, is he following you, or is he able, because of the pact he's made with evil forces, able to do this for everybody? And I don't think we necessarily ever clarify that. He's certainly able to do it for you.
I mean, there's narrative-wise, there's techniques to reveal a kind of self-reflection, analysis of the main character's thoughts. I mean, that's why I brought up the therapist with Michael. That was a really powerful, interesting thing to do in the video game. Like, I don't think I've seen that. That's such a cool. I mean, there's a Sopranos element there with a therapist.
A little bit, yeah.
I really love an opportunity for a character to just
be real,
self-reflect through that technique.
But it also changed depending what you'd done.
Yes.
So it was sort of slightly. It wasn't as interactive as it could be, but it was slightly interactive or slightly responsive to what you'd done. So I felt it was still valid video game content because it was living up to a point. And I just thought the character, Dr. Friedlander, was just funny because he was awful. So it was like LA, you're in therapy, it's very LA. It was also very LA, he wants to write a book and betray you, which felt like a good twist. And he felt like a Grand Theft Auto therapist. But just like the idea of making the player in a game, and games are intrinsically kind of physical. And, you know, you walk, you punch things, you run around, you drive cars, you shoot people, whatever. These kind of physical fantasies, trying to put them into a slightly more reflective or metaphysical state for a moment, I think can be really fun.
Have you ever taken exogenous ketones?
I've heard of ketones. What's an exogenous ketone?
You can take exogenous ketones.
I think, to me, one of the most surprising things about Red Dead Redemption, about video games, that Red Dead Redemption showed is how much value for storytelling is insanely specific, intricate details in the story, but also visually. It just added to the feeling that the world is real. So I have to ask, what are some of your favorite insanely specific, intricate details in RDR? I'll give you some options. Internet's favorite is horse testicles shrinking in cold weather.
Those guys did an amazing job on those.
Yeah. I mean, and there must have been a meeting, and there must have been engineers and graphics designers.
I think just artists, modelers. I don't think it was that hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Enough of that pun.
Thank you for that. Arthur's hair and beard grow in real time. So gun maintenance matters. Firearms get dirty and perform worse over time. Animal carcasses decompose realistically.
Yeah, they feel like they do.
That's still extremely rare in video games. That the temporal aspect.
Yes.
That permeates through time. You know, NPCs remembering you.
That's the best. I mean, that's the thing I love.
The best. Me too.
Playing around with a lot of stuff in new games around that, 'cause I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, I think that's where kind of AI is going to take us. So AI in video games is going to allow for really elaborate scenarios like that, where all kinds of NPCs remember what you do and comment on it, and it could get really, really cool. I'm going to try to make a video about it. I've been filming stuff, and we'll see.
It's really powerful,
to make them,
right?
really interesting. I think the
really interesting.
It's a really fun way of giving you kind of narrative content that is also systemic and procedural.
Yeah. Is it technically really difficult to do for for the game to feel like it remembers you. You know?
I think with modern tech, it's not that hard, but there's a lot of stuff you need to track to make it interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, to have a memory.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really powerful. The mud physics. So Arthur's boots get muddy and leave actual tracks. I mean, that's just incredible. Really, really incredible.
You know, we made a dusty game. Red Dead 1 is a super dusty game. The problem with Cowboys is that if you've tried to make a greatest hits of the cowboy game and then you've got to make a sequel, you've got to come up with different geographies. So that's why the game starts in the snow. So we wanted a game that had snow and mud because those were things you hadn't really seen in Red Dead 1. And then the challenge is how do you make mud good in a game? And guys did an amazing job.
They did a great job with the mud.
The snowstorm that starts the game, RDR2, I don't remember the last time I've experienced anything like it, but you felt it. I don't know how the hell you do that.
Yeah.
It's not just graphics, it's everything.
You feel it, yeah.
I suppose some of the dialogue is really important.
Also the acting, they feel cold.
Yeah, that's right.
And they feel desperate. That was that feeling of sort of
Yes.
exodus, like you're running away from something that gives the game sort of energy at the start.
And it was at night. Oh man, it was just
And there was a big
masterfully
group of
done.
them. The other first game you
Yes.
start off as a lone wolf, suddenly you're in this big group, so it felt very different.
In Arthur's body, bullet wounds persist. So that temporal consistency, that's really important. And then underweight Arthur looks gone, and overweight Arthur gets a gut and fuller face. Again, those like decisions that you make reveal themselves in the game across time, and they're consistent. I don't know. I did not see many games do that. It must be difficult to do, but to give that level of care to the details in that way across time and for specific graphical representations of things is incredible.
Yeah.
Do you have favorites? Where you were first like, this is amazing?
I think all of it. I think the way to me, the thing that I would care about most was the way the whole thing sat together. You know, the fact that each of those, they all feel like they belong together with each other. You made this cohesive, very, quote unquote, realistic for a video game experience, and all the details feel like they mesh.
Yeah.
Well, for me, everything about the horse. For a lot of people, testicle shrinking included. What's the process of deciding? The internet seems to really care about. I mean, they love the game so much, so they want to know if anything was cut. And I'm sure stuff was cut because you have to choose.
Mm-hmm.
What's the process of deciding what to cut? What the cut scenes like? Is there any scenes that you had to let go of that you really miss or wish you could have done in either GTA or RDR?
Well, I think the games ended up the way they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think there was a bit at the start of RDR where he'd had a baby who just died in Red Dead 2, and we ended up cutting it, which
Wow, that was probably a good cut.
was the right decision. It was too tough in some ways, but I think it gave him real, and he was not very sympathetic to his occasional girlfriend who'd had the baby. And so it made him very, very nasty at the start, which I thought would be interesting to play around with, because then it would make his redemptive arc even more interesting. Like, he was not a likable character at the start, and that was...
Oh, that's very interesting. But I'm glad they took that out, because it could have caused a lot of kind of people to be rubbed the wrong way.
And we ended up making him slightly more he's still sort of tough and nasty, but he's slightly more likable early on. That was the right decision. Commercially, it's better that way. But but I still I like that little bit. It spoke to me personally. There and just his inability to access his emotions, I thought was really strong, because then later in the game he's going to get very emotional. But there's also always little bits and pieces that get trimmed, and don't or missions that just are not going to work technically. Usually it's like, this mission's not going to work technically. Oh God, we've got to cut it. Okay, how do we glue the story back together? And we got better over time at gluing the story across missing chunks. You get late in the game and it's just something, some big challenging moment just is going to look rubbish. So you just get rid of it.
I think editing film, and I imagine editing video games, editing down is an art form, but it's also just, it feels like torture, because you're letting go of things you put so much love into.
Yeah.
It changes. If you fall in love with something and everyone else goes, let's change it, that could be, of course, that would be upsetting.
And you know what? That happens a lot inside animation and inside the world of previs. So pre-visualization in movies and stuff. I used to do previs, and oh man, it's gut-wrenching sort of, because you will animate all day on something all week, every time you're like, okay, here we go, looks pretty good. What do you think? Yeah, it looks pretty well. Yeah, look, I like it. But let's try this. Let's try something else. And you're like, okay. And you just keep trying something else and trying something else and trying something else until the director really loves what it is. And it's really hard to like take something and just throw it away, and take something and throw it away. And because as an animator, you put a lot of energy and effort into an animation sometimes. But in previs, you don't do that. You kind of just do animation real quickly and throw it away, because you know the idea could change at any moment. And it's really hard. It was hard for me as an artist to do that. It really was. I can do it, but it's hard. Just my creative sense and me holding on to stuff a little bit. And sometimes I get a little bit married to shots, even though I shouldn't, Sometimes I'll really like something and the director's like, I don't like it at all. I'm like, it can be heart-wrenching,
In some ways, otherwise you can care about it. But, if I was involved in the big creative thing and he goes, okay, it's the right decision, I can probably live with that fine. I think sometimes for designers, when they're only designing 4 or 5 missions in the whole game and 2 of them get cut, that must be really hard.
Is there DLCs like for RDR or GTA that you wish you had the time when you were there?
Interesting question.
Of course. There's always things I wish I'd done. I always wish I'd done more.
Yeah.
What would you have added? This is a fun, like, nerding out.
The internet knows we made a DLC, single player DLC for GTA 5 that never came out. And we were also never really worked on another game. But I like the idea of it. That was a GTA zombie game. That would have been funny. I think that could have been quite fun.
What was the GTA 5 DLC?
It was one when you played as Trevor, but he was a secret agent.
It
was cute. It never quite came together, and it was never finished. It was about half done when it got abandoned.
He said it, not me.
But I think if that had come out, probably wouldn't have got to make Red Dead 2. So
that's great.
There's always compromises. But
I wish that DLC came to life. And I don't even think I can speak on it personally. I'll have to check. It's probably in some kind of NDA, so I can't speak on it personally. But I really wish that that DLC came to life from a personal perspective as well. I don't know how to say it, but I just wish, yeah. Such a bummer. That could have been really cool. Trevor DLC, Agent Trevor, like it could have been really fun.
No, I like making the stories. For me, I love the model of GTA 4 when you had the extra stories coming afterwards, or Red Dead 1 when you had the zombie pack coming afterwards. I like just doing these extra things.
Yeah.
So I personally like to have done more of that in that company.
Yeah. And you know what? I think one of the reasons why they ended up, not only because Grand Theft Auto 5 Online did so well. Okay, GTA Online did so well that they realized, okay, we'd rather put our money into online than the DLC for Trevor, right? But that being said, I don't know if Trevor, Stephen Ogg, would have went along with it and actually did all the DLC, and I'm not sure. The reason why I say that is because he doesn't seem so fond of the character anymore, or doing video games and being associated with it. So I wonder if, like, after GTA 5 wrapped, if they would have approached him and he would have been like, yeah, let's do it. Or if he would have been, I wonder if that played a part in any of that. I'm not too sure. I have no idea, but it's interesting to find out that if they approached him and he turned it down, or they kind of like worked on it halfway and then canned it. I don't know the full extent,
And with stuff we're doing in the future, we're going to try and come up with worlds where we can add more stories. I like single player DLC. I just think the audience loves it, and it's really fun to make.
Does it make you a little bit sad that the gaming industry in general is moving towards more online, less single player DLC?
These are
Maybe
good questions.
that observation is incorrect, but it feels at this moment to me, it feels like it's easier to make a lot of money with online
if you get it right.
Yep.
And so
See, Dan Hauser is smart, boy. He is a smart cookie. That's right. It's only if you get it right.
gaming companies are reaching for that. And it just makes me really sad because there's so much power to what you did with Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know how during that time you're able to pull that off, but that was like a breath of fresh air, or
Yeah, I
in a
agree.
time where everybody was moving to online and there was that huge incentive to that. You go on and draw up, again, the greatest narrative in video game history and the greatest character in video game history, single player.
We still love single player games.
Yeah,
and
me too.
I think as we started up Absurd, we did a lot of soul searching.
Yeah.
And also a lot of like
His new
cynical
company.
looking at what goes well in the industry. Luckily, if you want to do what we're forced to do, and also what I want to do, which is make new IP, you need single player games.
Yeah.
You can launch a multiplayer game as with new IP. It's just extremely hard.
Very hard.
Luckily, we are like focusing on what we're good at, which is open world single player games, and we might add multiplayer components to one of them. I think one of them it's going to be really tough later on, but we're still thinking that through. But I think we're really leaning into the single player experience.
Wow, he's really letting the cat out of the bag on some of his stuff and on his ideas with his company. It's pretty cool.
As being a strength for us as a company and something we love to do, and I think something a large part of the audience prefers. And I'd love to, with all of those, keep single player DLC one way or another.
Hold on, let me look at this. Gaming preferences by generation. 16 to 24-year-olds are playing multiplayer more than single player. That's so true. And the older generation are playing single player. That makes sense. Makes sense.
Going.
Were there some other game ideas you considered while at Rockstar and afterwards that you didn't go with? So like Worlds, I don't know, pirate games. I mean, I would love to see the possible options.
Never thought a lot about a pirate game.
Really?
My son is obsessed by that game Sea of Thieves at the moment, so he's constantly saying do a pirate game. Haven't really thought about it too much. We worked a lot on multiple iterations of an open world spy game.
Yeah.
And it never came together.
Spy game.
Agent, and it had about 5 different iterations.
So good.
I don't think it works. I concluded.
And
I keep thinking about it sometimes. I sometimes lie in bed thinking about it. And I've concluded as what makes them really good as film stories makes them not work as video games, or need to think through how to do it in a different way as a video game.
So for people who don't know, it would be hypothetically set in 1970s Cold War era.
That was one of the versions. There was another one that was set in current. We had so many different versions of this game. We worked on so many different teams.
But it would be more geopolitical, like espionage.
And
assassinations.
Assassinations. I don't know what it would have been, because it never really, we never got it enough to even doing a proper story on it. We're doing the early work as you get the world up and running. It never really found its feet in either of them. And I sort of think I know why. Because one of those films, they're very, very frenetic, and they beat to beat to beat. You know, you've got to go here and save the world. You've got to go there and stop that person being killed and then save the world.
Yeah.
And an open world game does have moments like that when the story comes together.
Yeah.
But for large portions, it's a lot kind of looser, and you're just hanging out and you're just doing what you want. And I want freedom, and I want to go over here and do what I want, and I want to go over here and do what you want. And that's why it works well being a criminal, because you fundamentally don't have anyone telling you what to do. And we try and create, external agency through these people kind of forcing you into the story at times. But as a spy, that doesn't really work, because you have to be against the clock. So I think for me, I question if you can even make a good open world spy game.
Yeah, see, he touches on something very interesting. It's not just a spy game. There's other games that fall victim to this, and there's certain games that just don't play too well as an open world game, because it takes you out of the story. And when it takes you out of the story for too long, then you have a problem. And that's what Cyberpunk is. Cyberpunk is like that. The Witcher is like that. There's multiple games that when you play them, you are really into the story, and then all of a sudden you get dropped off into the world, and you start riding on your horse, or you start riding in your car, and you do like 4 or 5 side missions, and then you do one more piece of the story, and everything starts feeling like disconnected and messed up. And the reason why it feels disconnected and messed up is because it is disconnected, because you're going away from the story. It's like pausing the movie and then going outside and doing some stuff and then coming back and pushing play on the movie again. And it can be very disconnecting for the audiences as a player as well, I feel. So he's right. I feel I agree with him here.
So interesting. So you have to be able to ride around the car and listen to the radio
and cruise about,
or ride a horse and just look at nature.
So lots of things would work as open world games, but I don't know if a spy does.
That's brilliantly put. But
Yep.
to me, there's such a espionage and assassinations, and the geopolitical international context is so interesting. But you're right. I just want to listen to what is it, Laszlo and
Well,
on
you
the
can't. You've got
radio.
to save the world, and so you need this time pressure.
Yeah.
with a Russian accent or something. Yeah, wow. Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And then we played around with a knights concept that was knights and sort of trying to do a
Medieval.
version of a mythological game that could have been fun, and still love that idea, but never went very far with it.
Knights would be going really far back in history.
Yeah, I would have to go. It never got to writing any of it. Just did some backstory and played around with a few ideas. But it was it's always something I thought I would never do, and then kind of fell in love with it a little bit.
You left Rockstar in 2020 and eventually launched Absurd Ventures, as we've been talking about. What do you miss about your time at Rockstar? Is there specific moments that bring you joy when you think about them?
Bringing the
Of
hard
course,
questions.
it was my life for 20
His existence, yeah.
something years, 21 years or something.
Yeah.
It was, and I moved to America to do it, and grew up doing it, and I was always living in New York. It was at times very intense, and at other times magical experience. But it was also just a huge chunk of my life,
The lows and the highs.
and the middles. It was just my life. My life was that job and the people I knew in New York and my family, and we were doing something that was intense and innovative and both loved and hated by wider society in different ways and at different times, and in this weird company that was constantly in trouble. So it was really fun.
Just even looking back at that time to today, how did you evolve as a creative mind across those 20 years?
Well, I was a child. I
Wow.
was a 25-year-old child who didn't know anything, and I wanted to be a writer, but I still wasn't writing. And I bought a notebook, and I'd occasionally scribble in it, and I still got those notebooks somewhere.
Oh, wow.
And I was working in video games, which were the least literary medium it's possible to imagine at the time. There was no room for that on PS1 games, really. Thinking I needed to stop and do something else, but not having the skills or the confidence to do it. And I'd been doing that in London. Then I came to New York, and it was fun, really fun to be in New York, and really fun to do a new company in New York. And that was an amazing adventure, but I was still lost as a human being. And then when I was 27, I was still completely lost, a child. And I stopped some of my bad behavior. And the next day, pretty much, the chance to work on open world games and all the skills I'd half learnt over the previous years, and my way of thinking, where I thought about space a lot because I was a geographer rather than a historian, came together, and I got the chance to work on open world games. So it felt like it was meant to be. It was fun to explore, but really fun to explore with this team that was, Alex Horton and Naveed and Leslie and the guys in Scotland and all the people in New York making these new games in this new way, and going, we need to find 100 voices where we've got no money. How the hell are we going to do that? We'll get everyone's friends in and just record 4 lines of dialogue each, as we kind of would invent the way that pedestrians would speak in video games. No one else was doing that kind of stuff. It was insane.
Yeah.
Let's use Creative Cloud Pro to design a postcard. Adobe Photoshop's new AI feature makes it fast and easy.
So I think that period from kind of 2001, 2005, it was lots of early innovation and felt really exciting because we were doing new stuff. It didn't feel... It felt creative, but it didn't feel like writing yet. Just becoming that. It felt doing lots of creative things and learning how to assemble the stuff and learning what it could take. And then I think we talked about it earlier, but the journey into doing GTA 4, when it began to feel more like a proper writing experience. And I was kind of probably ready for that at that point. And then I was like, well, this is better than films. This is something that films can't do. This 360-degree experience of being this immigrant. And it still felt like we were still only scratching the surface. I mean, it still feels like that now in some ways, but it still felt like, and then that 5 games, GTA 4 and 5, Red Dead 1 and 2, all the extra packs for them, and Max Payne 3, I think we took the games thematically into new places through that period. From a writing perspective, that was the most exciting period.
Yeah, I bet.
From a business and sort of early creativity period,
Scary.
2001 to 2005 was probably the most
Scary.
exciting. The original starting team, we were all doing well. personal life was doing okay, didn't feel like such a mess.
Well,
And then from 2007 onwards, 7-8, was happy personally, having children, happily married, and the games were just getting much better, but there were lots of pressure in the business. It was just, and the budgets got really big, so I had this other stress. So there's always good bits and stresses, but and always just tried to sharp and do my best and think about how I could do it in a new way. Always trying to go, it's a new medium. What can we do that's new?
But as a writer, as a scholar of human nature, first of all, were you surprised that you were actually able, like you had it in you, through humor and tragedy, to create these incredibly compelling characters? Because I think I remember reading somewhere that James Joyce, when he was 20, said that he's going to be the greatest writer ever.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like every 20-year-old says this. It's just James Joyce pulls it off.
Yes.
So were you surprised that you were actually able to do it? And how did that person get better and better and better at writing as you evolved?
The team got better and better.
Mm.
So we could write in a more ambitious way.
Yeah, everyone.
The animation got better, so we could support it
Mm.
in a better way. We could go deeper. Like, you couldn't go that deep on a PS2 game.
Yeah.
So it was also just the technology evolved.
Huh.
I don't know. I felt like I was good at doing it and well trained for it, and I'd been in the right place at the right time, and I was both lucky and had a way of thinking about characters that, when you reduce them to about 10 sentences, was amusing. I think I was, and it was.
Had a knack for
I saw
it.
the world in a holistic way,
Mm-hmm.
and saw society in a holistic way that you could break apart into an open world video game. I was,
I can't wait to play his new open world game, because Dan really has a pulse on what's going on with these open world games. He's done so many of them that he's kind of perfected the algorithm of it, right? The creation of this type of game. So I'm really excited to see what he does with his new studio.
I thought about it a bunch. The way I think about things was suitable for that, for whatever reason. That was just good fortune.
Laszlo mentioned that who's another legend who you're still working with.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned that you would lock yourself in writing dialogue for radio. I think you would lock yourself in a room and get anchovies and onion pizza and crushed Diet Cokes. Yeah. Is this accurate information?
Very accurate.
For which periods of your life was this a fuel for your creative process? Is it anchovies and onion pizza?
I would also get pepperoni on my half.
Okay. Yeah. Ew. Yeah.
He wouldn't, because he claimed to be a vegetarian in those days.
Yeah.
But then he'd admit to me he kept chicken wings hidden in the freezer.
Yeah.
So it was a sort of fake vegetarian.
I didn't know about that.
We still do it now sometimes as sort of
nice.
memorialize. But that began in 2001.
Yes.
And the office at Rockstar was so small and we were so broke that there was no. And I did have a private office at the time, but it genuinely was a cupboard.
It's wild to think that there was a time when Rockstar was broke. It just doesn't even, you're like, what? Rockstar's never been broke. Like, almost. Like, it just seems like you can't fathom that,
It didn't have a window. I was literally sitting in a cupboard. So there was no room, and I had a desk and a chair just for myself. So but I lived quite near the office, so we would write 1 or 2 afternoons a week. He'd come in, he was a freelancer working with us. He'd come in from Long Island, and then we would jump on the subway, go to my apartment in Chelsea, and sit in this grimy little apartment I was living in and buy pizza from around the corner. And that became, we both like Diet Coke and pizza, very video game developer. And that became good luck. And we'd have these good writing sessions where we realized we got on well with each other, and that we had a similar sense of humor.
I didn't know
and
that.
We could write the stuff, and then he would do all of the real work producing it. So it was perfect for me.
This is what makes these. Okay, hold on. This is why I make the videos, and why you guys should come to this channel, and why I love the game development process, behind the scenes, interviews like this. This is why I made the channel I made in my YouTube channel, right? Is to talk about games and talk about stuff that you guys would never find out. Like, without him doing this interview, Lex Freedman doing this interview with him, you would never find out these cool little stories about him and Laszlo hanging out late at night, crushing pizza and Diet Cokes. It's just great stuff. I just love it. It's awesome, dude.
Got to outsource most of the real work, and he's a brilliant radio producer. So he was a great partner in that way. And then that was how that relationship began. And then I'd get him, I'd say, well, we've got to record these 80 voices. Come and help me because I can't direct 80 people at once. So he would help with that process. And he was a really good producer, like
Nice.
audio, like getting bodies in producer as well as a technical producer. So he was just, that was the beginning of that relationship. And it was always, my job was to ensure the media content felt like it reflected the tone of the world, and we would write it together. Then his job was just to make sure it sounded funny. Like he would just produce it in a really funny way.
Yeah. That's interesting. This is so cool to get a glimpse behind the scenes on this.
Just to give a little bit more of a shout out to Laszlo. What's it been like working with him for over 20 years? He's working with you still. He's a kind of this flamboyant, colorful personality. Much loved for being a voice also
I love
on
Laszlo.
radio in the Grand Theft Auto games.
Yeah, and the rule was when he was the character, I would write the first pass. So I would get nastier and nastier over time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So to the point when he's having his head shaved and being punished by everybody. But even in game after game, he got worse. He began as this quite in GTA 3, he's a quite likable character, and then over the next 12, 13 years, it just got worse and worse.
He's like doing it to him on purpose. I love that.
So I think he's glad not to be doing that anymore. But he did it with great grace. He's just a great partner because like me, we just like making stuff. He likes to make stuff. He likes to work in new spaces.
You can tell.
He's been a great help on bringing the comic book to life, doing a lot of the work on that. He's working on that right now. And just he's really fun to work with, and he's always will put creativity first. And he's ridiculous. He's just a ridiculous.
Shout out to Laszlo.
Yeah. Outside of the games you've participated in and created, what do you think are some candidates for the greatest game of all time?
Oh, wow.
Tetris.
Maybe because it's just so iconic and you can play it forever. I wonder why.
Just Game Boy. No question.
Tetris and a Game Boy, yeah.
It was the perfect device for playing that game. I never liked it as much as anything else. When my wife was trying to get a retro one for my kids, trying to get them for Christmas right now. It was the most addicted I ever was to anything in my life, of far too many addictions, that I was obsessed by it, dreaming about it. And when you link two together with the cable, and if I got 4, it would push yours 4 up. It's like the perfect game design. So from a pure puzzle perspective, nothing comes close.
Yeah, it's extremely simple.
Interesting.
Pure gameplay, no narrative.
No, nothing.
No narrative, no cutscenes.
Personality at all. It's a completely different
Perfection.
thing. But perfect in its way.
Yeah.
Open world games can't be that perfect.
Yeah.
No.
You always dream of making something like that.
There's Super Mario.
I think the N64
Oh, classic. Yeah.
ones,
Yeah. That's a
all of
classic.
those early 3D games
James
were
Bond.
very amazing when you first saw them.
Yeah.
On the N64, PS1, when you went, it suddenly was like these games, they were alive and they're believable in a different way. I think that was very interesting.
It looks unlike anything else.
Nintendo has that look. doesn't
Yeah.
it? Always.
It does.
Yeah. And I think that's the tone for this Nintendo polish. Every pixel has a purpose.
Yes.
I suppose Tetris has that same real focus on delivering a pure gaming experience with as little as possible.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. And of course, Zelda really pioneered a lot of sort of the feeling of a world, but it's not quite open world.
No, but it's amazing. It's almost like the new ones, they almost, to me, feel like Hitchcock. They're just speaking the language of video games. Everything's going to work this way and that way. It's quite systemic, but it's so, how it all glues together is so amazing. It feels like when you watch a Hitchcock film, it's not reality. He's speaking the language of cinema in a very, very strong, with a very strong accent almost. It's very, very cinematic. It's not realism at all. And that's what those Zelda games kind of feel to me, like they are these amazing things that could only be video games. They couldn't be anything else.
For me, another really powerful open world is the Elder Scrolls world. It's role playing, it's fantasy, dragons, all that kind of stuff.
Never
Todd
played
is
that.
great at what he does.
Yeah.
They're more, I mean, from a technical perspective, we're always involved. In the same with the new games, we're constantly trying to find the balance between, RPG a role-playing game
Yeah.
and an action game.
Yeah.
And and try to go, well, an action adventure game with RPG elements, and what does that mean? And I think they've all kind of moved into roughly the same space. But for me, it always just comes down to, is it easy to play? Are our mechanics super slick? And then can we keep our dialogue feeling very alive? Like, I'm not always a great for what we do. I like when other people do it. For what we do, we always want very punchy dialogue. So don't give big trees, but still have it interactive. So we're gonna lose a touch of interactivity, but we'll still have the dialogue feeling like it's alive. But we'll get better at dialogue, and it'll feel a slightly more cinematic experience.
This is Pod 5, the first fully immersive sleep system. Intelligent, adaptive, effortless.
Yeah, I think the Elder Scrolls series have almost always leaned a little more towards the open world.
Yes, they're real RPGs.
Yeah.
We've not the games that, I've worked on, they've not really been RPGs. They've had RPG elements onto a story-driven action game.
Yep.
It's a kind of, just a slightly different emphasis. But I still think what they do is amazing. He's brilliant at doing it.
And I think Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, and Skyrim are games where you have millions of people that just walk around or drive around.
And feel the world.
Feel the world. Just feel the world.
And The Witcher, same thing.
Yep.
And Baldur's Gate 1, 2, and 3, really interesting. They really tried to make every choice that you make genuinely branch the game to where it's not the illusion of choice. It's really, choice really does something. And that's really hard to pull off, technically.
Yes, and hard to pull off.
Yeah.
You've always sort of debating the sweet spot between that and a strong story.
And Cyberpunk tried to do that. I think they almost did it right. It's a hard thing to blend.
Yeah.
And strong mechanics. It's hard to get them all. And as a game making team, the whole, the teams kind of have to figure out where they want to fall on that line.
Yeah.
A difficult topic. You dedicated the book to your mom and dad, and in particular, you wrote to my father, who died while I was finishing the book. What have you learned about life from your dad?
Oh, what a good question. Damn, dude, Lex Freedman, I gotta give it to you, man. If you catch this video, you end up watching it, props to you, dude. You are a very good interviewer. You have put out some very, very powerful, good questions to him, whether they be personal or related to business and the gaming. Very, very good questions, man.
To be present, to go to work every day, to love creative things. He was a lawyer, but he was also a jazz musician, and he did both to the best of his abilities, and that to value family as more important than either of those things. He was a present guy, I think, and he loved books, always loved films, loved music. Wasn't into video games, but liked that we were doing weird things.
Was he proud of you?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. And he was for a lawyer, he really venerated at some level giving the man the quote unquote the man the finger. Like, whenever life goes crazy, he just was always on the side of the underdog and the ridiculous. And I think that,
human
he
side.
Always wanted to answer people back, always give the silly comment. And I certainly, taken that from him to my detriment probably, but it makes life more fun.
Yeah.
Like, he always would just say the obnoxious thing and just didn't give a fuck. And that was, I think that was probably quite inspiring.
So you have a bit of that in you.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately so, yes. Not
He says unfortunately so.
good at shutting up, not good at towing the line.
I think I speak for most of human civilization that fortunately you have that as
I was going to say that.
part of who you are, because it comes through your stories.
I think it made school difficult.
Yeah. That's funny.
They sent me to this very formal
like
school.
me.
Yeah.
That was like, it might as well have been set in the 1870s, in the 1990s. But then they want, I was always getting in trouble just for not for doing anything that wrong, just answering teachers back all of the time. Couldn't be quiet.
You too.
How often do you think about mortality? Are you personally yourself afraid of death?
Wow.
Well,
These are like really hard-hitting questions. How do you feel about mortality? Are you afraid of death? He just said. Wow. What a question.
How often do you think about mortality? Are you personally yourself afraid of death?
well, my father passed away in May, so a lot more since then, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about it a lot. Am I afraid of it?
Oh man.
I don't know. Some days
Man.
intensely, and some days not at all. I would love to stay alive long enough to see my kids properly grow up and settled, of course, for them. I don't, aside from that, some days I feel, spiritually connected to the universe and not afraid of death at all. And other days I feel like a sort of random piece of good luck who's going to get struck down by an angry fate and turn to nothingness. And that terrifies me. I just,
What an honest, great answer. I would love to go, work over at his company and stuff. He's very real with his answers and how he views certain things. And I'm shocked by this. I never met Dan myself, and I've never spoken with him personally. So this is all new to me, getting a glimpse of who he is and how he thinks about the world and everything,
What do you think about the nothingness? I mean, that in itself is terrifying.
yeah, that is terrifying. I mean,
Yeah.
I tend to, I tend to, I've spent long periods of my life tormented by that stuff. The last few years, I tend to believe there is a purpose and a point to life, and that we have some kind of spiritual or soul-based existence.
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure if it matters if there is a God or not. We should probably live our lives the same way either way.
Yeah.
But I tend to think that there is a metaphysical purpose to life, and part of that purpose is to search for the purpose. But at other points, you can get you read too much science, you get wrapped up in the nothingness of it all.
Also, there's a component to your brain. When talking about Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, you said that you have been by fortune struck with a bit of a capacity for the grandiosity of feeling. So you feel the world deeply, sometimes romantic, sometimes overly romantic. You've said, I like this line, feelings may destroy you, but they're the best thing we have. So that ability to feel the world, is that a gift or a curse for you? What do you think?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously both. Times it's both, or times it's one or the other. When things are going well, and you feel alive,
Yeah.
when you feel like you're connected to things, when you're seeing beauty in people and joy in experiences, of course it's wonderful. When you're feeling like bereft and set adrift by the world, and that you can't connect it to it in some way, and you're lost and abandoned by God or consciousness or fate or whatever it is, it's awful. When I feel like a dreadful hack, which is most of the time, it's terrible. You'd rather not be doing this rubbish. And then sometimes you're working creatively and it feels good and you feel like you're doing the right thing,
Yeah.
and it feels fantastic. But that's not very often.
Do you think it's possible to have one without the other?
No.
Yeah.
No, of course not.
No, you can't have sunshine without the rain.
When I think about growing up to the extent that I am capable of growing up, it is about accepting the bad with the good from any situation or any aspect of myself, going, okay, it's not perfect. I'm not perfect.
You said you often feel like a hack. Is that self-critical part of your brain? Is that a feature or a bug?
That's I think it's that new thing that we're going to lean into, the bug feature.
Yeah.
It's both, isn't it?
It's both, yeah.
It cannot.
It's a bug
be
and a feature.
That self-critical brain, I think lots of people suffer from, and I think the internet is designed to induce. If you didn't have it before, you will have it after being online. It clearly can become a bug, but it also can give you drive and a lack of complacency, so it can also become a feature.
I had a pretty intense argument with Paul Conti, who's a legendary psychiatrist, student of the mind, about this. He worked with many famous creative people, and he thinks that negative voice is not at all needed for creative genius.
Hmm.
And I thought, I know awfully a lot of creative people that have
Yeah.
that voice.
Yeah.
I'd rather not have it, but I certainly have lived with it this far. There's a danger that negativity, for me, that negativity and consciousness become the same thing, and sometimes have to fight to not just be perpetually negative.
Yep.
And that can be part of the human struggle for lots of people.
Yeah.
And certainly has been for me.
Mm.
I think if you're trying to do, good stuff and you're reflective inevitably, and you live in this world of constant criticisms by the internet. Of course, everyone who ever puts something on the internet, be it a picture of themselves or any kind of work they've made or whatever it is going to get 50 good comments and one bad comment. And remember the bad comment. So that becomes fuel for the negative voice. I don't know anyone that's strong enough not to. No, we all, at some level you should just measure that stuff in weight, not in quality. But of course, we just focus on the quality.
And I do think in general, as you get older, that's a real challenge for people. You see the different trajectories people choose to take, but it's easy to slip into cynicism and negativity, into this Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground, nihilistic kind of worldview. I think the heroic action to take with time is to become more optimistic, to see more good. I think that there's probably a hero's journey of being extremely self-critical at first, for the first maybe half of your life or 2/3, and then while maintaining some self-critical aspects, just so you stay humble, start to see the good in everything around you, in other people, in the world, and even maybe every once in a while on a weekend in yourself.
I hope so. I mean, that's what I've been. I could not be more cynical. I think you put that beautifully. I could not be more cynical than I was as a child. I could not see goodness anywhere. I couldn't see, I don't think late 1970s to early 1990s England was a place of great, optimism and naivety. It was brutal. And I was brutal within it. And I think I've become much more naive and tried to become more innocent in some ways, and always tried to see the flawed good in people. I've tried to, and I've had to force myself to be like that, because the other way is not fun. It's not nice it's not nice to not be nice.
The body scanner reveals the brutal truth about your body that your regular scale will never tell you. For weeks, my scale showed I wasn't losing weight despite diet and exercise. I was about to give up until
as a brief aside, you had a wonderful conversation with Ryan McCaffrey at
really?
LA Comic-Con. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. He writes amazing stuff at IGN, and he has a great podcast. Everybody should go listen to it. I really enjoyed it. Plus, I got to attend a Comic-Con and just be there in the audience. And like we were saying offline, the LA Comic-Con, it's the first Comic-Con I've been to. There's just all kinds of real, genuine nerds, good-hearted.
Oh, it's fascinating.
It's
Brilliant.
just so much kindness and goodness and just simple joy in being a fan of a thing was there.
Which is what those things are all about.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened?
So let's talk about some of the greatest books of all time. And I should also give a shout out to an excellent podcast you did with Sonia Walger, who's a friend of yours, but she had a great podcast. Guest picked the 5 favorite, most impactful books and so on. You picked 5 fiction books, 1 for each decade of your life. For the audience, they should go listen to that.
Oh, Tender is the Night. You chose Tender is the Night. Wow, interesting.
Winter Holiday by Arthur Ransom. Second one was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Then Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Thin Red Line by James Jones. And Middlemarch by George Eliot. But just zooming out, reflecting back on that conversation, what do you think if an alien came? What are some candidates for books that you would recommend to them?
Middlemarch. It's the best novel written in English. War and Peace. It's one of the best novels written in Russian, I would argue. I think both of those are, because if you've only got one book, you want a long book.
Yeah, true.
And they're both books that kind of
War and Peace.
I was always trying to put into games, and that feeling of all of life is here. You've got love, death, violence, romance, the whole human experience in different ways. So I think that there's something amazing about, Vanity Fair. I used to love the novel, not the magazine, because same thing. All of life is here.
You also spoke highly of Scott Fitzgerald and Hemingway.
I was obsessed by them in my 20s.
Yeah,
Completely obsessed.
as one must be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
at that age. And I think them as a double act is so amazing. One helped discover the other, and then died first, and then suddenly it died in obscurity, and then was rediscovered as a genius while the other one was still alive, and falling into not obscurity but into decline. I think it's that their relationship is itself very novelistic.
That by the way is a phenomena of writing, maybe no longer, maybe still, that people like Franz Kafka who died in obscurity, like all these writers who died in obscurity, nobody knows them, and they become famous later.
Yeah.
That is just so interesting.
That
That's
is
such
really
an
wild.
interesting. That Franz Kafka and Franz Kafka in particular is fascinating because he wanted all of his work to be burnt, destroyed. So that insecurity. Speaking of the critical voice.
Yeah.
And
I was just gonna say that if he wanted them burned, he must have not have been happy with them, and he was, self-conscious about it.
I think he's one of the best writers of the 20th century. Of course, the dystopian novels are really interesting. 1984, Brave New World.
Love 1984. Had never listened to it or read it, and then I think I did it on Talking Book, or I maybe read it. I can't remember, during COVID, and I think I did both. Became obsessed by it. And it's got elements of that creeping into A Better Paradise. But it's so good. I hadn't realized how good it was.
Yeah.
And it's so of the moment.
It's almost like because of its fame and it's almost like cliche, and you think of the caricature.
English. And I remember the year 1984. And I remember the song. It's too
That's
much.
when I was born.
It can't be that good. And then it was that. I came to it completely cold. Just, I should work my way through this because it's another classic I haven't read. And then it's incredible.
And the book I've read more than any other book is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I don't know why exactly, but the childlike fairy tale telling of totalitarianism.
Well, you grew up in a communist country.
Yeah, maybe that's it, the roots of it.
I remember, I was a kid in the Cold War in London, and we were always terrified of Eastern Europeans. You were going to come and kill us all. And then I ended up marrying a Pole.
Yeah,
and we had Ukrainians, who worked for us and worked with us, and we were sitting a few years ago, sitting around a campfire in upstate New York, with the campfire was built by our old nanny's husband, who's Ukrainian, and he'd been in the Red Army. I was like, history is so strange that the Red Army used to be the ultimate enemy. And we're now just hanging out with it. Everything changes. You think these things are permanent, and they're really not.
Yeah.
We face some of that now, where you think these structures are permanent and they're going to change.
And you also mentioned that the three great World War II books are The Thin Red Line, Life and Fate by Vasily Grossman, and The End of the Affair, Graham Greene.
Have you ever taken exogenous ketones?
I've heard of ketones. What's an exogenous ketone?
You can take exogenous ketones.
What makes for a great war book?
I think World War II is interesting because it affects everywhere, obviously. And so you can get all these different kinds of stories. And there's so many good. I was just trying to come up with a range of one American, one British, one Eastern European, just to get different perspectives. But there's so many amazing World War II books about all kinds of stories. I think the most complete one, because it is this all of life being there, probably is Life and Fate, which is amazing.
And it was written by Vasily Grossman. He experienced Stalingrad firsthand, and there's also just a deep philosophical component.
And the bit in Treblinka is one of the most harrowing sections of any book I ever read.
Ooh, I'd like to read that. Really,
almost more than any other piece of art around the Holocaust, made me feel what you would feel like at that moment. And it's just an incredible piece of humanism.
And also just, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It seems like...
Wow, dude. Lex Freedman is really well read, huh?
That context reveals in the most pure way human nature, and like what kind of, in Man's Search for Meaning is when everything is taken from you, the little remains of love for, in this case, his wife, is the thing that is a little flame that burns. And Vasily Grossman is small acts of kindness
Mhm.
is the thing that allows the human spirit to persist.
I love the bit in Life and Fate when you get, obviously it's in this Stalinist period, and so they're all losing. They all know that what they thought was going to be wonderful about the revolution isn't going to happen. So there's a whole, and everyone's scared of being killed by Stalin because it's post the purges. But then you get these guys and they're trapped in a building fighting in Stalingrad. And so they know at this moment they're dead anyway. And they get to live like pure, perfect Marxist communists away from Stalin and all his nonsense. And I thought that section is incredible because you realize, like, in some ways, in all of its horrors, the most disappointing thing about the 20th century in some ways was the absolute failure of communism. You know, it was because it was such a, you know, quote unquote beautiful idea, and it just did not work time and time again. And these people who fought for it and then saw it not working, I think they're sort of fascinating characters. You know, all of the revolutionaries from 1917 that were then killed by Stalin, which was all of them apart from him and Lenin.
And that was, you know, people in modern day politics talk about communism like it's trivial that it would lead to atrocities, but I don't think it's that trivial. It's this idealism of humans.
Yeah.
It's like, why can't we all get along? There's a real compassion behind it. There's real love. And what you realize is it's a real study, the 20th century, of human nature that, unfortunately, at scale, that kind of compassion is abused by centralized power. So there's a dictator always in that context, in those, given that set of technologies, a dictator arises and does the opposite of what the promise of the ideal is supposed to be.
Well, I think I thought a lot about that then, because I was taught by all these disappointed communists, you know, after 89, all of these English communists, you know, were all like having to accept, discovering all these atrocities had happened in, you know, so it always fascinated me. And then you think about complexities or where one's own values are in the modern moment. And I say, you know, without from and whether either of them, any what we would call left now or call right now, does it have any bearing on the sort of communist era of those words? And I would say probably not. I think things have changed, but fundamentally, the one value that I would think is worth fighting for is whenever either side starts to move towards thought control. That's never the right outcome. The right outcome is, oh, you've said the wrong thing. You should be removed now. That should never, ever be a thing we should lean towards.
It does seem like individual freedom is a
important
prerequisite for happiness and a flourishing of a larger society.
Yeah, of course.
So there's, like you said, 1984 is pretty, I mean, it's a caricature.
But it is brilliant.
It's actually also just a good story. That's my criticism of Brave New World. It's just poorly written. But I like Brave New World probably applies more to the 21st century than does 1984.
I think 1984 with the fake wars and the way that it revealed that everything in it was a setup for him. There's something, if he could have seen the internet, there's something, it's like an analog internet, that world they build around the main character.
What advice would you give to a young person today about, let's say, career, how to have a career they can be proud of, how they can have a life to be proud of? You've had a non-standard life.
I've had a lucky life in which I have fought to mess things up, and fate has always thrown me a bone.
You've traveled in South America and had hobos chase you with machetes. Yeah. So that happened.
Was a series of poor life decisions.
Yeah.
And I ran away. You know, I ran away to South America. That was a poor decision. I ran away from the guy with the knife. That was a good decision.
Yeah.
I came to America. That was a good decision. Came to LA. That's, I think, been a good decision. It's been fun to see a different side of America and be in a different creative environment. LA is still amazing for creativity and entertainment, the wider entertainment industry stuff. I think that's been fun. What would I say? I would say when you get a chance, take it. Yeah. That was one thing I did do well at. When I got chances, I was good at taking them. I would say do not worry too young about your career. I would say worry about having a rounded intellectual inner life, because you're going to spend the whole of your life in your own head. So the more interesting you find your own head, the more interesting you find the world, the less you're going to annoy yourself. So I would say do not do a vocational degree as an undergraduate. That's I would say do something else, do something, random, and then focus afterwards. That would be, I think, I was advocating against the obsession that people had about 4 years ago with STEM subjects. And now AI is going to make them all irrelevant anyway, perhaps. So, it's interesting to see everything changes. Jobs are not that hard. Turn up, be enthusiastic, turn up in person, be enthusiastic, help people, say you'll be fine in any job. People is,
Did you always know when the chance to take showed up? Like, this is interesting, this is new, this is different?
Not always, no, but I did the big times where the chance to move to America. For me, that was a big moment. My life was a mess.
That was weird timing. So I read that Sam wrote you an email. In South America.
I was in South America, in Colombia, when there was a war raging there. I was making a series of very poor life choices and a lack of life skills, age 25. My latest poor choice was to get up too early because the police didn't start work till 9, but the muggers started at 8. And so I was out walking along the beach at 8, and these guys, this Rasta turned up, who I'd been talking to the day before, and started trying to talk to me. And then 2 guys came up to talk to him, and I couldn't tell if they were trying to mug him because he owed them money or he'd bought me to them. But I did notice one of them had a machete and the other had a kind of broken gun. So I thought, this is not good. And I ran off, sprinted down the beach in my silly shoes, and got to the chance for once in my life to run over to a road, jump into a taxi and scream, take me anywhere. Feel like I'm in an action movie. And the guy's chasing after the machete. And the taxi driver looks back, sees the dude with the machete and goes, "Sí, con amigos?" And I'm like, no, they're not my friends. Yeah. Get me out of here. And then he drove me up the street into a bit where the town was. It's kind of between the old town and the new town in Cartagena. And I got out of the car and then cut my foot on a rock. That was the sum total of my injuries. And then went to an internet cafe, because this was probably late 98, and got the chance to come and work on a game for 6 weeks in New York. And I was like, well, if I stay in South America much longer, I'm going to get myself killed, because I was getting into silly stuff. And so went to New York, and they're just starting Rockstar. And so I got to sort of write the mission statements and whatnot there, and help set the tone for that, and just ended up staying. Had to come and go a bit while all visas got sorted out, and then just ended up staying for it. Thought, I'll stay for a year, because New York's pretty fun. It actually was not that. This was the height of Giuliani before he was a maniac. So he... you couldn't, when you went to bars, you were told you couldn't dance because they were trying to clamp down on New York being fun. So it was actually less fun than London, but there's still a great energy in New York. And got exposed to the kind of madness of New York capitalism.
By the way, as we hear sirens in the background, that always makes me think of New York.
Yeah,
whenever I'm in New York, there's always sirens.
Steam coming out the floor, people screaming at you. I mean, you get people screaming at you in LA at least.
Yeah, but it's more It's more
spread out. You can get a bit more quiet here.
Yeah.
And I loved the energy. It was great to work hard and then be able to go out for dinner late. And New York was really, really a fun experience for me.
You worked with your brother Sam for many years. What do you admire about him as a creative mind, as a human being?
His drive and his vision early on to see what video games could become. He was the one who understood that video games were the next big thing. And I think that was, people would laugh in our face about that in those days. And so to have someone that was strong and saying, no, we stay to the course, and then having the confidence to push through with these big projects.
Are you excited for the future of video games?
Now, this is just the sweetest wallet I've ever seen. GPS trackable, trigger.
Yeah. I think I completely. I still look at I'm glad you've spoken. You've spoken so kindly about our work, about the stuff that I did and the stuff the whole teams did. It's wonderful, but I just look at it and see problems and see things that we can do better. I think it was always try each time to do it better. And I've got, some of the stuff we're working on now is going to do stuff that people haven't really seen before.
I can't
And
wait.
I think I think the games can get so much better. They can feel so much more alive. They can be better at storytelling and feel more alive and feel like, their systems, all the stuff, the component parts we talked about, we can both make each of those parts better and tie them together better. I think it's the technology. To me, it still feels like it's only just beginning. It's been cinema evolved from like 1895, whenever it was, until they invented talking in 1930 or whenever that was. It's not that, and then it's kind of found its modern form, and then by 39 they're shooting in color, and that's basically a modern film. Is no different from a 1939 film. But with games, I still think we've got a long way to go. The tech, there's so many different parts of the tech that it's still got a long way to go, and you can go in all different fun directions.
I just wish, and I know you said video games take a lot less than they could, but I just wish it was faster. Like, you've already made me fall in love with Absurdiverse, and you've made me fall in love with A Better Paradise, and now I am going to sit depressed realizing I'm going to have to wait. I could, of course, read.
Well, we should have some little short cartoons coming out in a while for Absurdiverse, and more stuff coming in the next period. But yeah, it takes a little bit of time. I think, movies, big movies are 4 years plus from start to end.
Yeah.
With all the legal stuff at the start, will be about the same.
Yeah. And certain movies from idea to completion, take 10 plus years. And some of the greats.
A lot of that's just that development process that is really sometimes feels like it's designed to not make stuff.
A bit more of a specific advice, but on the topic of video games, what advice would you give to maybe independent video game creators that are dreaming of creating great games? They're inspired by Red Dead. They're inspiring of all the incredible open worlds and narratives you've created.
This is such a great opportunity. Like, anyone who's watching this, like, you finally have a chance to hear what Dan Houser thinks about this. You know what I mean?
Like, how's it possible to have a chance of doing something like that?
It's part of the two ways. Try and do it cheaply with yourself and a small group, or join a company that you think is doing it the right way. And I think there's upsides to either of those. I think if you want to make something that's cinematic, AI is going to change some of this. But if you want to make something that's cinematic, you need resources. You can still make something that's really interesting that isn't super cinematic, but it's an interesting experience in some ways. But the second you're involving actors and motion capture and one of those big experiences, it's going to cost some money. So therefore, if you want to do that, you've got to figure out what companies you want to work out and figure out how you get to work there.
Do you have hope for AI helping with some of the video generation, some of the world generation, some of the open world assistance in generating the world?
Yes, limited. Absolutely. If used correctly, it will be a great tool. If used incorrectly, it will lead to loads of generic stuff.
Yeah.
I've been in games for 29 years, and all the time the piece of tech that's going to make making games much easier and much cheaper is about to turn up, and all that's happened is the games have got much better and way more expensive. So I'm always nervous about saying, finally we have that bit of tech that makes our lives easier, but it looks as if it might be able to do that when you use it in the right way.
Yeah.
If you use it to try and as a substitute for creativity, it's going to be really generic.
Big ridiculous question. What's the meaning of this whole thing we have going on here? Of life, of existence.
Wow.
Why
to this guy.
are we here?
To watch the universe. The easiest plausible answer is we are designed by the universe to watch itself and to comment on it in interesting ways.
Consistently more and more interesting ways, yeah. What role does love play as part of that?
It's the only thing that makes it possibly worth doing. Everything else, everything material is irrelevant. So the only things of value are these immaterial things.
Wow.
I do think metaphysics always trumps physics for me.
Well, Dan.
Yeah, wow.
From the bottom of my heart, speaking of love, thank you.
What a pleasure. Thank you, man.
Thank you for everything you've created in this world.
Yeah.
Me and millions of diehard fans of your games are forever grateful. I know there's a lot of people that would like to say thank you to you.
just to be clear, because I always like to make this very clear,
Yeah.
it was never me. It was always me sat alongside people with actual real talent who did amazing things.
Well, I hope you keep being self-critical and creating awesome stuff in the world. And we can't wait to keep exploring the worlds you create. And thank you so much for talking today, brother.
Thank you for having me. What a privilege.
Wow. Wow. Nice. Nice. I'll tell you what, that was a really, really good interview. And one of the main reasons why it was such a good interview was because of Dan, but he is very intellectual. He's very well spoken. He's very well read. You know, he is like a, how do you say this? A deep soul, right? You can tell that he's been through a lot of ups and downs and different things. He's seen a lot, and he's made a bunch of different games, different styles of games, and that experience is you can't put a price tag on that. Like when some people say like, oh, like some people hire an artist, right? And that artist has worked at one place for like his whole career. That is not really a good kind of how do I say this? That artist doesn't get to experience a lot of things because they're trapped in their own little echo chamber, sorta. Does that make sense? If they're making one style game or they're working at one company for a long time, but when somebody works on multiple games, multiple different styles of games, like myself, for instance, I've worked on all kinds of different games, mobile games, VR games, AAA games, indie games, right? It doesn't matter. The only thing I haven't done is what do you call those games? Slot machines. I haven't worked on something like that. My point is that the experience is big because it brings a lot to the table. And Leslie Benzies probably has a lot of experience as well, but I feel like it didn't translate into Mind's Eye. And for me personally, after watching that interview with Dan Houser, I feel like Dan Houser and his company and what they're going to do with their game might do really, really well. And I think that I'm confident saying that because of after watching that interview. He seems to be very knowledgeable about a lot of things of how games are made, how they function, how they, react to how they kind of portray themselves to an audience and how an audience will react to certain things. It's really brilliant stuff. So thank you so much for coming along and sitting through this interview with me and through Dan and Lex Freedman. Shout out to you. All your questions were amazing. It was really an honor to kind of sit through this and check it all out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, you know what buttons to press. Also, we have all kinds of other stuff here on this channel. If you want to check out another interview kind of reaction, there's one here with Neil Druckmann and all kinds of other stuff. So thank you so much for your time and support. And I will catch you guys in the next one.